Thank you very much to our expert panelists for sharing such valuable insights and for that extremely comprehensive session. Also to our moderator for being really enthusiastic through it and encouraging audience participation. Also thank you to the audience for being so participative and attentive. It's now time to disperse for a 15-minute coffee break, but as you know, this is a boot camp and we have a lot more activities lined up, lot more segments lined up, so please do come back. See you on the other side.
Workshop for you. So we'll start right on.
Welcome back, everyone. As we know, this is a boot camp session. So our objective is going to be to give you as much concentrated information in a day as possible. So keeping that objective in mind, let's move on with our next session. We'll move straight to the next session, for which we have from UK, Mr. Nick Hill, the Director of Sales for Space and People. Nick heads up the UK sales team for Space and People, ensuring the sales potential for on-service venues is maximized. Space and People India is a subsidiary of Space and People UK. It is India's leading venue buying specialist for brand activations with a network of over 250 venues. I'd like to now give it over to Mr. Hill, who will be presenting some international case studies and providing an insight on the latest trends in the international markets and captive audience marketing. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd just like to say thank you to an agency called Square Melon and to Coca-Cola for allowing me to play that. My name's Nick Hill. I'm sorry, ladies, I'm not Craig David or Daniel Craig, just jumping out for you in my underpants, but that's what has to be. My name's Nick Hill. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for inviting me here today to talk to you. I feel a little bit underwhelmed or overwhelmed with some of the company that I'm sharing the stage with today. What I wanted to share with you was some of my experience. I've spent 10 years being a media buyer in this industry at Space and People. And in that time, we've done somewhere in the region of 90,000 promotions, which is 500,000 promotion days for brands and agencies in the UK. We currently are in Russia, India, UK and Germany, so we're actually a global brand, and what I want to bring to you is some of those learnings that I've seen over those 10 years. More importantly, things that hopefully you can take away as a lesson. I'd also like to thank people for inviting me, because I've already learned a few things today from Puma, and I would apologise to the gentleman from Puma because I haven't got any of your videos today. I'm using a rival brand, but more of that later. So I feel that I am allowed to stand in front of you, but what I need to talk about is the evolution of brand experience. And the most important thing is none of us are in a mature market. People would look at the UK as being mature, but we're not. We're still looking at how we use technology and drive things forward, and hopefully you'll get a flavour of that. And I think Dr. Das this morning talked about the issue that you have as an industry is not just about handing a sample to somebody. This promotion here was done by a newspaper, I think 6 years ago. And what they were doing was handing out morning cereal bars. But ultimately, anyone can put a brand in a hand. That's a great idea, but is it really a brand experience? That's what you want, is the emotional connection with someone. So just giving somebody a brand is not what we do. We create experiences, we create platforms to people to be allowed to do that. And that's the ultimate here, is about what you can do. So as that video just showed you, and I would challenge the three gentlemen who were on stage at the start, would you allow that in your venue? So that train station in Belgium allowed that to go ahead. A live, living, breathing train station. And that's what you've got to challenge people such as Space and People or other venues, is to allow you to be creative, because that's what's in this room, is creativity. So the evolution of brand experience. If you look at that, the Werther's promotion that we have, that is a promotion to give away sweets, but rather than just give those away, the agency and the brand sat down and said, what are our core brand values? What are we looking to do? So to me, Werther's is where I would sit on my grandfather's knee and he would give me a sweet. It was an oldie worldy thing, so hence the oldie worldy shop. It's about creating something and working with the centres to allow you that platform to be able to achieve that. And it means that I have an emotional connection with that brand. That is what a brand wants us to have, is that emotional connection, so that I can become a customer and I can keep that emotional connection going forward. It's also about using the five senses. It's interesting that TV stations, radio stations are getting involved in what we do. Why? Because they only sell on one or two senses. We sell on all five senses. We're penetrative. We're in your lives, whether it's an airport, whether it's a train station, whether it's coming round to your house to run a brand experience. Ultimately, you're a penetrative media, but you hit all five senses. And as Confucius said, tell me, I'll forget. Show me, I'll remember. But involve me and I'll understand. And that's the key thing to the agencies in this room and the brands. Involve your customers. As Puma said, we give people the opportunity to try our trainers, to take them for a test drive. That's what brands need to be able to do. And you need to look at that side. Samsung in the UK as well as India have done promotions where they get you involved, they take you through the product. It's not just about having something, giving away a free car. You need people to sit and drive that car. So give them a platform centres to allow them to test drive. The video I'm about to show you is one of those examples where you have to bring something alive. This was from the sale of the Athletes' Village at the London 2012 Games. Something that you all will have seen. I can't remember how many medals India got, I apologise, but it was the best Olympics the UK have had forever. So at long last we've actually got some decent sportsmen, not just our cricket team who are abysmal. The cold reality was they had to sell this village. So how do you bring alive a village, which is a building site, because they're converting it into flats? So an agency called ID in the UK came to us and said, we need to connect with Londoners. How do we do that?
To life, it's one thing seeing it on paper, but to actually go through it as it is on the bike, I did love that, yeah.
So that's East Village in London, and that just showcases the way that some agencies look at it. Imagine taking a bike ride through a place which is currently a building site, in an environment where you feel at home, whether that be by a business, whether that be in a shopping mall, whether that be at an exhibition. And they built a stand, again, any stand builders that are here, that could be transferable between those. And that's a key. Make your buck go far further. Don't just build one stand for one venue. Look at it across all of them. We talked about, earlier on we listened to people talk about measurability. And one of the key things that I think we need to look at is, why is brand experience important? It's important because it's about the word of mouth. Ultimately, in a cluttered media environment, and it's becoming more fractionated, everybody in this room could today launch a website. So how does a brand cut through that? And what those figures behind us show, however good online is, it only represents 7% of ways that people actually communicate and pass on recommendations. How many of you in this room have bought a product or a gift because someone, a friend who you trusted, showed you that? And we'll talk about that more later as we look at the types of measurability that you can have. It's about face-to-face. Brands want to communicate with you, with the people out there. And how do you do that? We heard about footfall, schmutfall. What is that? It's ultimately about the individual connection with a person. And what you need to understand to buy that is the same as my previous experience. I worked for a newspaper for 10 years. I could tell you how many one-legged men who had 15 children and drove a Porsche read the Daily Telegraph. That's what I could tell you. We are at the moment at the mercy of not being able to give you that guidance. So why would a brand like Puma give you any money? Why would they trust us? So we have to rise to that challenge to show them that. An example of a customer who has backed it is Xbox One. So anybody who's seen, I presume it's launched globally. In the UK, it had a media spend for above the line of £5 million. But they asked an agency to go out and create something that they could take around Europe. And they came to Space and People, and we booked it across 3 countries. We did over 60 days of promotions and interacted with over 40,000 customers in markets. But key to this was that they amplified that campaign by allowing them to have online. So you had to go online to retrieve what you'd done. And that meant that there was 10 times more people were seen because of the impressions that it created. And the other thing I would just point to, if you look very carefully at the vehicle they've used, that vehicle was what they transported the kit to and from, so they could drive it anywhere. Open out the back, it was a bit like a mobile scud device. They could open the back and there was all of your technology. So it's a cheaper way of putting this campaign together. So again, if you're building any technology, look at those type of things that you're looking to do. This isn't one that I worked on, but a company in America, and I do know this because I came from Mumbai Airport yesterday, there's nothing worse than waiting for your bags. That whole thing of, oh, my bag's going to turn up, am I going to have to present today in some borrowed pants from Mandeep and one of his turbans? No, thankfully that didn't happen. But what Zappo did to promote themselves, they took a boring, mundane task and created a wheel of fortune. So imagine you're stood there as your bag drops off the carousel. What they made it even better was they had brand ambassadors who were there to amplify that campaign. So they would create some anticipation, so it was a better experience for people, but they then allowed you to put it onto Facebook and social media. A key then again of amplifying that campaign. Measuring experiential. It isn't just about footfall. We have to have proper measurability so that people such as yourselves can buy that. And as I said, in the UK, we've done something like 500,000 experiential days across 10 years. Well, we've logged that information. So any brand or agency coming to speak to us can tap into that knowledge. As long as we're not breaking any confidences, we can tell them, well, this centre or this airport has had X number of car promotions of this type. That's invaluable information for people to be able to look at. But it's still not good enough, not in the world of online. Online is what I think we're all being asked to look at. How do we promote ourselves to mass market? So we've gone and done some research working with Starcom MediaVest to look at conversation catalysts. These are people who are social influencers. So in this room of maybe 200 people, there's probably 30 or 40 or maybe a higher percentage because you work in media, who when you put something on Twitter or Facebook, people listen to what you say. So we've come up with various calculations to actually rank venues by the conversation catalysts that they have. So we can now give more guidance. And some such guidance as that was done for Lego, which I will show you later on. But it's important you look at what the power of conversations are. A company called Keller Fay, if any of you are familiar with that, if not, read their research. They show you how a conversation catalyst, someone can influence people. And that's the key to this. You're spending money in a mall in Mumbai, but why could the population of India or the region or the world not see what you're doing? And hopefully some of the videos that I'll show you later on are where brands have taken that and amplified that out. And as I say, Keller Fay sat down and they looked at this. And Keller Fay, using the calculation that I've just taken off the screen, so I apologise, have shown that one person can influence a further 61 people. And we used that information when we planned a campaign for Lego. Are everybody in this room familiar with what Lego is? Okay, sorry, I apologise for that. Lego in the UK has fallen away. Computer games have replaced it. So Lego have spent a lot of money, and if you see the size of that promotion, you'll understand that, to bring in parents, to bring in young children. But what they wanted to do is they wanted to amplify it. They didn't have the budget to do that in 20, 30 cities in Europe. They only had the budget to do it in 3. So they used whichever malls or venues would give them the largest amount of social influencers. And that stand got an index of 161. So that's 61 more times than the average. And that's what we're able to use in the UK to show that. But it's not just about the measurability. You can use things like clout. Are you familiar with clout? So clout will look at how any activity you do or what your social media ranking is. And we have seen from studies in the States through Coca-Cola that when you're doing some brand experience promotion, your social clout and ranking will go up because people are sending emails out. The next video I'm about to show you is one where they're producing content. It isn't about the number of people who interact with that, and that's one of the themes that we'll see. What we offer is a platform for people to create content, to stick it onto YouTube and watch it go viral. And it's interesting that a traditional media is using an experiential media to try and do that. Again, I'd like to see a shopping centre allow that. Sorry to speak over. I'd like to see a shopping centre allow people to go around running with guns and shooting. But clearly their health and safety out of the window, but that was about a brand, a TV station, creating a viral. I think that's got something like 53 million YouTube impressions. So it shows the power of what you can bring alive for people to be able to do. I've heard quite a lot about the use of technology. It was one of the things that I think is key around the world, is how you use that, whether it's for measurement or accountability. But it's also looking at what content you can provide and then amplifying it. The campaign here that you may not be able to see because it's quite small is for Gillette in the UK. I think you've had a similar campaign in India. And what that allowed the people to do is to tweet. So brand ambassadors now are tweeting about what the activity they're doing. That's trying to get that out there. And venues are looking then to amplify that further again to their database. So the guys here from Phoenix, Mal, you've got to get onto that. If you're not already amplifying the campaign that you've got in the centre to the people who are your audience, that's what you should be doing. Because the people buying your space are in essence tenants, just like the shops. And that's what you've got to do if you want to be seen as a media, is how you can possibly do that. But as I said, experiential marketing is now being used to create content. And the next video I'm going to show you is probably a very good example. Again, I would like to see the guy from Times Out of Home run this in Mumbai, but that's a challenge for him to pick up later.
All confirmed passengers should now be boarding with gate number D. Forward, final boarding opportunity, bus
weiblich, ca. 1,65 groß. Die Gesuchte trägt eine hellgraue Jacke und einen großen Schal. Wenn Ihnen diese Person auffällt, verständigen Sie bitte umgehend das Flughafenpersonal.
Bitte? Guten Morgen, meine Damen und Herren, ich begrüße Sie zu den N24 Breaking News. Die Polizei bittet um Ihre Mithilfe. Dringend gesucht wird diese Frau. Sie befindet sich seit gestern Vormittag auf der Flucht. Die Verdächtige ist ca. 1,65 Meter groß, hat dunkelblondes, lockiges Haar und trägt eine helle Jacke. Die Flüchtige gilt als unberechenbar und äußerst gefährlich. Bitte versuchen Sie nicht, die gesuchte Person festzuhalten oder gar anzusprechen. Für Hinweise zur Ergreifung der Verdächtigen wählen Sie bitte die unten eingeblendete Nummer. Wir melden uns wieder zu den Hauptnachrichten zu vollen Stunden und bis dahin noch einen schönen Tag.
Guten Morgen. Sind Sie gestresst? Sie sehen so gestresst aus. Da hätten wir was für Sie.
I could do with some of them now. As you can see, that's something that you would struggle to get away with in an airport, but it's done in a controlled environment. It's one of the things that you need to, as I say, challenge people such as ourselves to run that type of campaign. There was nothing in that bar the 12 people they actually stitched up who saw the experience. But again, using online tools, that thing has gone astronomical. It's something like 40 million YouTube hits. It's quite big on Facebook. Nivea themselves used it. So TV stations are using that experiential space to create actual TV adverts. The next clips that I'm going to show you are from that rival footwear manufacturer that I mentioned. The first one shows how you can be creative using outdoor media space and linking it in with the space for experiential. I don't think it was as done as well as they can, but as an interactive display, as someone who used to run, I've stopped as you can see by the size of me, it's something that I think you'll all acknowledge is a really good and creative piece that they put together. So there you see a very creative idea that a poster company, in this example, Clear Channel, used in the States. That was actually in Grand Central subway station. Again, a health and safety at 9 o'clock in the morning may have given you a problem. The only thing that I think the brand and the agency didn't do, they didn't have enough branding and brand ambassadors there to allow people to upload that to Facebook. So it allowed it to be much more what I would call guerrilla, where people notified them. They should have had some more amplification present. But they took that idea to the following year, and this is truly phenomenal. If you, as I said, I have been a runner in the past. Imagine running a marathon and having the support of people. And ultimately, I think as Puma said, this is about the product, but you need to know that product's got you back. And I think this is what ASICS did exceedingly well in 2012.
The New York City Marathon. 45,000 runners from 42 countries running 26.2 miles through all 5 boroughs of New York, with over 2 million spectators to cheer them on. It's the biggest marathon in the world, and for most runners, it's the most challenging race they'll ever attempt. A few elite runners have the people they need with them course-side, but not everyone can have the people that matter the most with them on race day. ASICS believes every runner should have what they need to run their best. That's why we created SupportYourMarathoner.com, a site where loved ones can send words of encouragement via video, image, or text to the marathon runner they're supporting. The site was promoted through the New York Road Runners Club newsletter, our own site, through bloggers, and by runners and supporters using social media. During race week, we set up booths where friends and family could record personalized messages for runners. Now that we had these messages of support, we had to deliver them to the right people at the right time. For that, we used giant LED screens course-side and an invention we called the trigger chip. Here's how it worked. On registration, every runner received a bib number and a unique RFID tag to attach to their shoe. As runners crossed sensors in the road, their personalized messages were sent to giant LED screens.
A lady went by, saw a message from her family, and she broke out in tears. She was so happy to see her family on the course, but she would not have seen it otherwise.
So as you can see, having a brand, having your back and bringing your friends and family, what a great piece of marketing for them, and actually very experiential. And we heard earlier on about RFID chips and how they can be used. We've seen in the UK people like Nokia using these, where they have within their promotional space different sections where you can scan an RFID chip, which instantly uploads it to Facebook. Take the hassle out of the person you're trying to influence actually getting that information online. You can control it a little bit easier on what they're doing. It's just something that you need to think about, how you can use that technology to do that. What other ways have we seen technology being used? This was a Sony Xperia launch that happened about a month ago in the UK. I don't know if you've seen the adverts over here. In the UK, it's been based around the waterproof properties of the phone. And having been in Mumbai month-season, it probably would be a good idea as it is in Glasgow. We had divers sat in tanks, again, as a health and safety issue. But this was all about trying to create some sort of visible entertainment that people would stop. You need to think about how you get the public to stop and interact with you in whatever environment you are in. We've worked with an agency called the Circle Agency who work for EA Games in the UK for 10 years. And they, every Christmas period, holiday period, do a promotion across various miles. It's all about driving sales to their online games. Increasingly over the last few years, with the threat of the internet and with some of the inline traditional retailers disappearing from malls, they've started looking to retail. And again, that's one of the things that was interesting hearing Puma say. They'll look at doing retail in schemes. I think Samsung are doing the same. But one of the problems they always had, if you've got that much electricity and the British weather doesn't really go together very well. So they had to create something, and what they built was something called the EA Hub. The EA Hub is a big articulated lorry that can extend out, again, a bit like the Xbox, but allows you to have a waterproof environment at festivals or at shopping centres or outside in high streets. It gives you that opportunity to be able to do that and take that somewhere. And it's a short video clip that they put together just showcasing that from a motor show they went to in the UK.
I'm shouting loud and proud about the EA brand, selling games, doing one-to-one demos and doing passive stage demos as well.
We just come here for a good day out and it was here, so I went in and had a look. I've got a couple of pictures done, things like that. It's quite good in there.
The Hub is just a fantastic promotional tool. We've got some of the greatest games on here that people can play all over the country. It just brings games to the masses wherever they are and allows them to experience some of the best games on the planet.
We've also seen other brands doing things not on such a big scale where they're looking to retail. EE are a phone network in the UK. They have shops, but they also wanted to do a promotion, taking that out to rival venues. So we planned it, looked at whoever the other tenants were, what the sales were like. And this stand here, they actually retailed goods from. It's a great way to be able to look at what the viability of a venue is if you're going to look at opening up a shop or somewhere else close by. What I would warn you of, for every good example I've given you today, there are bad ones. For anyone who's ever been to the UK, there's a cereal brand called Sugar Puffs. I don't know if you've ever heard of those. They have a big monster who is their logo. We had a brand about a year and a half ago do a promotion where they were selling branded products online on the site as well to try and offset the cost of the space and the activity. They didn't sell any because no one felt any affinity with that brand. So it's just things to think about if you're going to retail. Do you really want to retail, and how are you doing? It's just something you need to think through. So what key learnings can you take from what I've talked about? Ultimately, this is about where you spend your money. So if for the brands out there and the agencies who already do a large amount on the above-the-line industries, you have to challenge people like me, or Space People India, or Venues Direct. You have to turn around and ask them, why should I spend money with you? That's the first thing you've got to do. And as an industry, we have to look at creating standards, our own currency. And conversation catalysts certainly are one of those that we're using in the UK. And that's one of the good things that you have to look at. The environment that you go into. What is that environment? What are you trying to achieve? Again, it was interesting when you heard shopping centres putting people outside different stores. Is that right? Should they be doing that? Ultimately, their hands are slightly tied because they are a shopping centre. And I would say to any venue, you have to imagine, do you want to be seen as a media? Because that's what we're providing as a solution. You're providing the creative content, and I'm providing the platform. But a media will be slightly more creative, and that's what they have to look at. How do you run that? What type of activity do you do? I've shown you some examples here today, but it's about engagement and how you engage it, the brand ambassadors you use, their knowledge of your brand. If somebody's going to stop and talk to you, I heard the gentleman about financial services, if you're using agency staff, they have to know your products. They're your public shop window. Make sure they know that. The size of the space. Please, the EA Games Hub, do not build something like that here and then try and get it into the Phoenix Mall in Mumbai. A lorry doesn't fit through the front doors. I've told agencies that enough in the UK, they just don't get it. Call to action, how do you do that? What is your methodology? What are you asking the person to do? The Sony Xperia one was an interesting campaign. That uplifted sales, I think, 52% in the malls it was in for a week and the following week afterwards. So what are you doing? Are you working with retailers to see how good or bad that is? That's what you've got to be able to do. And again, the 500,000 promotional days that we've carried, we have a lot of that information. Some of it we can't share, but sometimes you can share and say, yes, this client booked back in, or if we've got case studies, those can be passed across. Ask your venues to provide that for you. Retail or not to retail, I'm a big fan of Shakespeare, so sorry, I couldn't resist that one. But ultimately, do you want to retail? Think about that side, because you may not, you may offend the people you're trying to sell to by what you're trying to do. I heard everyone saying about giving away freebies. I like free, but ultimately that devalues your brand is all I would say. So think about that carefully sometimes. So the man from Puma, let them test drive it, and then they can buy it at the end, don't take it back. Sale and return, it depends how you want to do it. And ultimately it's about the results. Every single one of us here is about the results we derive. That's the profit that we make as a business. And that's what we have to do. And we will only make that profit if we get it right, because people like Puma and the other brands here will only spend their money if we're getting it right. And I passionately believe we are the best platform. We should be at the hub of all marketing, and all the other spokes and strands of media run off from that. And slowly you're beginning to see a shift in the West and in the UK that is what you're beginning to see. Experiential is forming the hub because all of the marketing comes off it and leads back into it. And finally, I'd like to finish with a video which I consider now all my personal friends. So tonight, if you receive a phone call from me and I'm in some not very nice part of Mumbai, please watch this video and remember me when you watch it.
Imagine, it's the middle of the night, you're sleeping, your best friend calls for help. Will you go out and save his ass? Tonight, we put some friends to the test.
Ça va, pote? Ik ben op Delg opnemen, ik sta in de shit eigenlijk, jong.
Zijn ze aan het slapen? Ja, want ik heb hier een dik probleem eigenlijk.
I went somewhere and I played some cards in a poker room and I've lost some money.
En fait, il faudrait que tu ramènes 300 €.
Ja, sorry frère, ik weet wat laat is, maar... You need to bring me the money because they don't let me get out.
Nee, ze zijn hier met 3.
Voilà, je sais vraiment pas t'aider.
Quoi, vraiment pas?
J'ai gagné op je kop gewoon. Ja, als dat echt moeite van doen, ja.
Tot zo biedt, hè.
Oh, again. Good floor.
Ik kom nu naar beneden, je komt dat geld halen of ik ben push. Als je iets verder, man, ik spreek van mijn leven niet tegen je.
Did you bring my money? Put it on the table.
Thank you very much. If there are any questions, if you'd like to ask, that's fine, thank you.
Very inspiring videos. Some of them reached faster to India, Nick, than most of them, but I think they're very good examples. I just have one question before I ask you the question. You can borrow my pants anytime. Underpants is what I'm not sure of. The question I have for you is, we in India really want to measure the effectiveness of captive audience marketing. And I want to know from you, beyond footfalls and impressions, is there a way where UK is measuring experiential marketing? That's part A of the question. And does procurement departments play a very important role in UK as well? Because India is becoming, really dominating. They kill the creativity just to get that 2 rupees lower from each other.
Thank you, great questions. The first one about measurability, we are bound, unfortunately, by the venues that we work for. Footfall is a counter which is not ideal. It's not like number of newspapers bought and sold, which are audited. They're very accurate, but ultimately, who are those people? That's the thing that you can't tell. So we, working with agencies, with brand experience agencies, with brands, and with venues, are trying to find ways to understand who those footfall are. Airports in the UK are very good at analysing themselves to death, so they have that information. Our challenge is just teasing it out of them. And what I would say is if DDB, like they do in the UK, when they launched the Volkswagen Fox, they asked for what are the audience profiles of those centres. The difficulty is, like any sample, how big is it? And most centres will look at a sample size of being about 1,000. So the key aspect is to sit and look at what is it. And unless we challenge as an industry, it will just be seen as why should we invest in that? I'm not saying that you will pull your spend immediately and go elsewhere, but you have to turn around and keep asking the question. And that's what I would level at those venue owners that are here. You've got to allow brands to ask you difficult questions and answer them. There's nothing to hide. And I would hazard to guess, as in the UK, venues don't want to share that. They've got a fear. They fear that the shopping centre down the road will find out that they've got so many old women or so many young children. They already know. They come and sit in your shopping centre, they have a cup of tea, they look at it. Worse than that, the people who buy the shops, they know better than anyone. So why are we hiding information? Because in a world where you hide the information, we all feel cynical about that. And the key part is working together. You're not going to give sensitive things away. The other bit that we have worked, we did a campaign for Siemens Mobile about 3 years ago, where we linked in, so a certain centre in Sheffield in the UK they own, in essence, the mechanism to look at till data. They put that technology in, they pass that on. So we could track, we weren't relying on the retailer telling us, we could see how many Siemens mobiles they were selling. We could track that through a period. Again, ask the question, demand it of them. If you're a brand, Puma, I presume, are quite powerful, but they may find retailers don't want to give that information out. You've got to ask that. And you've got to look at where you're advertising. So that's the first bit about measurability. And you ultimately build up a database. So with the 300 brands that you've worked at for the number of years you've worked there, Mandeep, that's your DNA, that's your knowledge. And it's how you use that, and that would give brands the comfort to come and work with you as an agency, and that's what you need to work on, I guess, and how you package that up. Procurement, yes. Procurement are the masters of all now. What I would again say is this is about how you look at that as an industry. We're dragged from pillar to post. In the UK 10 years ago, it was like the Wild West. Everyone was marking up and marking up and marking up. And all that happened was procurement got involved and they killed it. And they brought in people like us because in essence, we're media independent. We're independent of agencies, we're independent of venues, that's what we are. So it allows us to sit like people like Billets, Dunnhumby, who aren't owned by anyone, and actually audit it. It's not in my interest to charge more to Puma to make a margin. I want Puma to spend more money. I don't want to make a margin off an agency. So we act independent and we're transparent. That's the other thing that we've done in the UK. If you ask me to book a piece of space, I will show you that invoice. You may not want that invoice, as I get asked repeatedly by agencies in the UK, or you'd like me to give you a different one. We won't work that way. It's as simple. And that's the effect procurement have had in the West. You can no longer hide your dirty laundry somewhere. That's what's happened. And they do ask for justification, but what I'm seeing is they see that it works and procurement are buying into that. People like L'Oreal, their procurement manager sits in the presentations with the brand team and the experiential team, and they sign it off, and they're happy to sign it off. So embrace it is what I would say. Don't push your back on them. Any more? That was like 3 questions, so do I get off stage now? Well, thank you very much.